This is Dan Jerk.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to
The All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
Hello, I am the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow. My name is Tyler Patrick, and this is the Krypton Report. I have with me my co-host, Superman Red, the Man of Steel himself, Mr. James Cole. Welcome, James.
Hey, Tyler. How's it going?
It is going well. It is going well. We are here today to discuss the third series that we would be covering, and I mean my new series, on this show. When we started this show, we were covering Supergirl with the plans to cover Krypton, which took a lot longer to come about than we thought. And then Krypton came and went. And now we have Superman and Lois. And what an achievement this show is. What just amazement. Like, I can't wait to we've tried very hard not to talk to each other. It's been tough. It's been tough.
Yeah, it's been silent in our chat today. Besides some comments on the show as we watched it last night, we haven't discussed it.
Nope. I think that was for the best. We'll get right into it here in a moment, but I just want to say like this. I even messaged my mom and was like, hey, I'm watching the new Superman show. Like, it is really good. I think you would like it. And she's like, well, your dad and I thought, we bet you were watching. I'm like, yeah, no joke, Mom.
Right? Like,
I have a Superman podcast.
Was there a doubt?
I have a Superman podcast. I have it tattooed on my chest, and I have a basement full of collectibles. But I'm not going to watch the new show. I'm not one of those fans. Like, I saw some people protesting that this ain't really Superman because you don't have trunks on. And I'm like, you are an elitist fool and don't deserve to be a Superman fan. Because that's just ignorant. I mean, I'm sorry, but
people have the most petty of reasons to say not my Superman. People have the most petty reasons for not my whatever these days. So, to some form of entitlement, I guess.
I guess everybody has to have their, oh, it's mine. But so some quick information here about this episode. You know, so originally we were supposed to get Superman and Lois back in the fall, which would have been October of 2020. But then it was supposed to be January 2021. And now here we are at the end of February of 2021 in my birth month. So I'll give them that. That gave me some joy. Watching this pilot, which I've learned was co-financed or they were helped by deals with different companies in HBO Max. They put more money into it to give it that bigger cinematic feel and vibe that it has. And we'll talk about that as we get into it. But 1.66 million viewers for the pilot last night, and the pilot clocks in at 1 hour and 3 minutes. And I kind of wish they had put just I don't know. As I rewatched it, I was like, man, I wish you'd almost made it like a little bit 20 minutes longer, like because it teetered on that. Like you could have made this into like almost like a movie, like for the launch, and then kind of like how Lois and Clark's pilot is kind of like a TV movie. It's like 90 minutes, like it was shot to be like a TV movie type thing. And I kind of wish it was a little bit longer. Because there's a couple scenes as we go through that kind of felt like so quick, the way they were cut and edited, that I thought I missed stuff. And we'll kind of break it down. But we haven't had Superman in his own series in 10 years. Smallville went off the air 10 years ago.
Yep, 2011.
And now we are back. I have to say, as it was starting, Solo had the best line. And as we were watching it, the kids watched it with me and they're excited. And I had one of my friends who was calling me every commercial break because he was he was enjoying it. But Solomon said, "Dad, your favorite type of Superman? He's got a beard." I just had to laugh, and I've never said like I like that. He's like, "It's like you, Dad. He's got a beard." I'm like, "All right."
Nice.
I'm like, "All right, Solomon. All right." But it was great watching it with him because certain points, like he was like, "Oh my gosh, did this happen?" And we'll get into it, but it was really cool. Like I really enjoyed it last night. Jania really enjoyed it. It was very emotional and just hard hitting. And it definitely shows it's a new era for like I guess you could say the Arrowverse or the CW shows. You know, as some of them are leaving, like this one I think is kind of the new standard, and
they stepped it up. They took a next step with this show from traditional CW shows. Even some of the best seasons of the Arrowverse, like Flash season 1 and Arrow season 1 and 2, Supergirl, even on CBS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're gonna have that CBS money, which I plan on once the series is over, us kind of do like watch a season and then just talk about like in an episode like a recap of like. So I'd like to kind of go back and watch the first season and go back through it. But so I read today that there's gonna be more flashbacks to come, throughout the series. So that's gonna be really nice. And there's a lot of cool Easter eggs that are hidden in here. And we're just gonna get into it. Are you ready?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I love this. Like this is beautiful. Like this Superman show has just made me. It just resonates with me on so many levels, and I can't wait for more. Because this one set up so much of the family drama dynamic that I feel like we'll kind of get more into, because they named the show Superman and Lois. Maybe just because it was the only name they could come up with that's available without, copying. But you know how Lois and Clark was more about Clark and Lois. I feel like this is going to, with Superman and Lois, more emphasis on Superman. But we'll start out that it felt grounded. It felt real. It felt refreshing. How it felt like Superman in a family drama. And the only parts that felt a little like out of place were the end scene with the stranger almost felt like it was on a regular CW show compared to what we were watching.
Well, it was a more high special effect scene, CW doesn't have the budget to go take a helicopter up into the mountains and film a shot there, let alone do like an on location set, even something small, just a view from the outside, how they do for movies for their aerial shots and stuff like that.
It's 2021, man. You just strap a camera to a drone.
Right. So, I mean, more or less, it's probably stock footage from some other obscure Warner Brothers shot.
I mean, hey, put it in the background, whatever. So, some things, okay, to talk about. We know it's post-crisis. The only thing we got with Superman after Crisis, like we talked about, was him standing around with the quote-unquote Justice League, in that old costume.
Yeah, and in the Hall of Justice scene at the end of Crisis.
Yep, and then her saying boys. So there's not a lot of really retconning going on because it is post-crisis and we don't really know their history. But some things I was thinking about.
Yeah, Crisis literally rewrote the history of the Superman they gave us in Supergirl.
Which I think is what maybe they wanted first before they did this show. So they could do something different with this show, give us a different angle on this show about Superman and Lois with kids, is married, his parents, farther into their lives and careers.
Yeah, they really did.
Because here's what I'm thinking. With Crisis, did they compress the time for when Superman was here on Earth and Kara landed? Because, originally he had been here he's 12 years older than her. Like, he had been Superman for a little while, he'd already been on Earth for 12 years when she landed, right? Yeah, no.
She was 13 when she landed, and he was already Superman.
Right.
So, and by the time she donned her cape, you can assume it was maybe 10 years later, 8 to 10 years later, at least 21 years old. I maybe think of her as like 23 or so, possibly at the beginning of Supergirl.
That works. We know this Superman has been Superman for at least 15 years.
And the boys are just starting high school, so I think the boys are actually, and they're freshmen, so they're like 14 years. Yeah, they're 14.
Yeah, so we know that he's been in Superman at least for 15 years, at the least. So I'm looking at he's been Superman for, 15 to 20 years. That's how long he's been. So that means he would have come out as Superman, young, probably about 20, 18, 20, puts him in his mid-30s right now. And
well, it also, any history like what she talks about on Argo on the first episode of Crisis, all the things that happened to him, they could have or couldn't happen, or could have or didn't happen to him. So, like at this point, this Superman is kind of a blank slate on what you want to be able to do with him.
Right. We have an idea of who he is and who he was based on the pre-crisis stuff, but this is him, post-crisis. And it just kind of like I was thinking today, like, we know that Argo was a big thing because that's what caused Lois to get pregnant. And so that works differently now because like time compression.
I think the Argo, I think she was able to get pregnant before. I just think the Argo was the safest place for her carrying a possibly superpowered child. I think that's why they left to Argo. I think she was already pregnant before they left.
Oh, because I thought he said that they got pregnant while they were on Argo because he came back, and then they were going back to Argo for her to have the child. But
I would have to rewatch it, but I'm positive she was pregnant during Elseworlds when he caught her and everything. Well, I'm positive she was pregnant at that point.
I know the actress was like in real life was pregnant, but
I'm fairly certain it was Lois. Because I don't know. I didn't know if she was pregnant at the time.
Well, I mean, because at the end of Elseworlds, yeah, you're right. Because at the end of Elseworlds, you're right. Because in Elseworlds, the Elseworlds ends where they say they're going to Argo to have the baby. So you're right. But even then, like Argo, you think about that would have been when they were on Argo, still would be 14 years ago. So it's just that time, like. They came back after Crisis, like it jumped. We'll see because it's just little things. Because there's no Kara at the wedding, so that means they were married before Kara, right? You know what I'm saying? Like there's little things that you're kind of like, okay, all right, no Jimmy reference, and I don't want to say they have to. Like I'm glad there's no references in this episode. There's no we have to lean on this or lean on that to make this show work. They don't have to.
Yeah, no, they used exactly what they needed to make this show work. Superman, Clark, Lois, the boys, General Lane, Lana, Martha.
I just hope that somewhere, like maybe in this season, we'll get a Kara reference, or maybe even like a guest spot of just them two communicating, because it feels so distant from everything else, but yet the stranger is what's going to tie it back into everything.
Yeah, because we got confirmation of that today.
Yes, we got confirmation that he is a leftover, and I figured, like, if we go back and remember in Batwoman and in Supergirl, they both had where people, the same person from another Earth was on their Earth, even after everything was Prime Earth. And so that's kind of what the stranger is going to be.
Yeah, somehow doppelgangers existed. They made it through Crisis on the New Earth, so.
And we're getting ahead of ourselves, and we'll get into it. So now, let's get into the episode. It starts with, voiceover and the ship coming to Earth, and I really like this scene, and I'm glad that we're not probably going to get on the next episode like, my name is Clark Kent. I was sent to Earth to save it. I'm Superman.
God, no. Good God, no.
But we see, the craft land in the cornfield. We see it open, which was really awesome to watch how it opened, and like he's right there, like the baby is right there, and we see Ma and Pa, and it's got that kind of shot from his point of view, which was very All-Star Superman.
Yeah, well, because the ship, as it's hurtling through space, they show on the inside, and it looks like a birth chamber, like a amniotic sac or something, like a baby in the Matrix.
Yeah, kind of like the John Byrne thing.
Yeah, I don't know if he was genetically engineered that way, or just choose to believe that's how he was kept alive during the trip. You know what I'm saying? Either or. Honestly, you could believe either or.
Mm-hmm. And we get, Smallville, the town of Smallville. And it's the actual same town. They filmed Smallville in it. It looks really different.
It does.
We have Ma and Pa, and then right there, Jonathan falls over for his heart attack. We get the funeral shot and, more voiceover. And I'm watching this like, wow, this is great. And then he talks about going to Metropolis, and we have him catch a green, it was like a PT Cruiser, but it wasn't a PT Cruiser.
Yeah, it is a PT Cruiser.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
He catches a green PT Cruiser, and he turns, and he's wearing the Max Fleischer suit. And look,
I freaked out. My kids were like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?"
I freaked out and was smiling, and Jania was like in front of me because I was massaging her shoulders, and I was like, if you could see the big stupid grin on my face right now. Like, I love the black behind the S. I think this suit looks great for this scene.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it's supposed to be he's hope, he's a rival. It's bright. Everyone who was complaining, they got their trunks. It's just nice to see a different suit. The idea that he has an evolution to his suits. Tyler's been Superman for like a short period of time, and he's already gone through 4 distinctively different suits. And the kid, he sees a kid with a baseball hat and says, nice suit. And he says, my mom made it, which is straight out of All-Star Superman, or Superman for All Seasons that we just read.
Thanks, my mom made it for me.
And, he's smiling. And what's interesting, if you look at it, Tyler even looks a little younger in the way they filmed that, with those soft lenses, his hair and everything. Like, he's more completely clean shaven in that shot. And I think it helps to actually make him look a little older when we get down the road here, and a little bit more emotionally worn down from what he's dealing with. You know, we got our Action Comics #1, and then we move along to the Daily Planet. And I was kind of sad we didn't see a globe, a spinning globe. That was kind of bumming me out. But it was. Do you think that was Perry? Like,
yeah, I assumed.
I assumed it was, but I figured if they would have kind of called out his name and maybe made it a little bit more of a big point or something. Like, so I kind of feel like it was done intentional so that we could say, oh, it's Perry White. But then later, if they actually want to bring in Perry White, they can hire another actor and like really do the character.
Yeah, possibly.
We have him meeting Lois for the first time.
Well, we're so far down the road. I mean, unless they, like you said, flashbacks, unless they go back, we're so far down the road. Perry's probably retired.
Maybe. I mean, because I've kind of put it in the perspective of like this time, okay, that we're in is the same time we would have been post-crisis, but now just events have changed at different times. So if you think about when Tyler first appeared on Supergirl, he's talking to Perry, and they reference Perry. And so it's just like, this isn't 14 years from that. That time span has been compressed. So they're at the same point in their life in the same time. Like, it's just 14 years earlier things like occurred than they did.
Right. So I kind of feel like maybe the before crisis was like Superman's story over the years where his identity was hidden for so long. Like, it was even hidden from Lois for so long. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They worked alongside each other and just very different where, you know, and like, even when Reeve is trying to keep his secret from Lois in those movies, but obviously, you know, they don't have like a TV show to stretch that out. Lois and Clark 2 seasons where she doesn't know.
Yeah. See, that's I just kind of feel like maybe they worked together for a year or two before he told her, and they got like they were together when he told her. Like, that's kind of my head.
Exactly, and now post crisis, it's more like what we believe now, that they can't spend so much time together, and her interview Superman and Clark have so many disappearances and her not figure it out.
Yeah.
If not like Amy Adams know it because she found it out so quick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That trope is gone. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
You know, I like how when he meets her, like, he's bumbling and kind of stumbling and stuff because he's kind of caught off guard from her, you know, and she asks him about, like, you know, why'd you wear a tie? Lombard suggested for you, and it was cute. Like, he's talking about, oh, you're the
nice
first
name
Lois.
Drop.
Yeah. He's like, you're the first Lois. Wait, I had a teacher named Lois. She's like, you're the first Clark. Wait, wait. And he plays it just goofy enough, and I love it. You know, we see how he proposes to her, so that's, you know, a crisis change. They have their wedding. Sam Lane is there. No Lucy Lane. Hopefully she'll come in, you know, to play here, especially since we have Sam Lane going to be so active in the story. We see Ma, and they talk about the twins. We see the sonogram, and he talk about how easy Jonathan is and how great it is and how happy he is. And we see him throw a football and breaks the rope. And then they talk about how Jordan has night terrors and social anxiety, and he's just different. And there's a reason, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I don't want to say anything too far, but, you know, we have Superman go to the nuclear reactor, which is a great, like, scene to come in on. The music is awesome.
Well, so what's really cool here is before we get to like the present day, which is the nuclear reactor, um, they are talking about things with Jordan, and then they show newsreels of Superman saving the day and stuff like that. Like just quick snippets, like the story told that Superman, you know what I mean? Like you would have seen, say, in BBS with newsreels and paper articles posted all over the place.
Exactly. Like, and that's kind of like where I wanted when the kids later say, "We've seen Superman. We've seen him," and I'm like, "Have they? Or is it like just quick? Like, you know, is Superman trying
on the TV from a distance, out in the crowd, what have you? You know what I mean?"
Yeah. So Sam Lane, I thought this is interesting. He has like a little call thing for Superman. He activates it, and Superman comes flying, and we hear people talking about what's going on as Superman is flying into the reactor, and it's a great shot of him landing inside that with the fire and special effects.
That's excellent. Him flying in and listening ahead to kind of get information on the situation before he even arrives.
We see that he sees a crack in the reactor. He fixes it, but it's still too hot. He flies out.
I love how he uses his different forms of vision, X-ray vision and whatnot, because they show it later. It's not like this focus or anything like extra to focus on X-ray vision, or because it shows in different wavelengths. You get different colors like infrared, and you get X-ray where it peers through different levels. So he's got a very multifunctional a multi-spectrum view. It's really awesome.
Because he used like the X-ray and like the enhanced vision and
and like as we see later when he looks underneath the pipes when we get there, he sees the boys, and it's kind of they're lit up as almost like an infrared.
Yep.
Underneath there. So yeah, it's really awesome, and that's kind of how he sees the crack too. I mean, the extra heat seeping right through that crack's lit up.
And what the next part, like he flies out into the water, he breathes cold, like super breath. So we're just knocking out the powers, boom, boom, boom. Flies
a la Superman 3.
Yes, but it also reminded me of Superman Returns. Like just the way he was looking, holding that up, kind of reminded me of Superman Returns, where he's pushing the kryptonite land chunk mass of Earth.
Yeah, I liked how he came up out, because when he came up out of the water, I was like, oh, sweet iceberg. Just lifts an entire iceberg out of the lake instead of like this really big flat sheet of lake that Superman took in Superman 3.
So he cools it off.
What was really cool is he came out, he looked wet. He was soaking because he actually dove into the water and came out. You almost never see that. They come flying back down and nice and dry.
Well, to your point, yeah, he's soaked. He drops it and he comes out dry because he was in the heat. And then he cools it off, and this is the one part that I was like, I wish they would have flipped the editing, because it then all of a sudden the title card comes up, and it was a beautiful Superman and Lois title card. And then when it cuts back, it's him dropping down, doing the superhero landing and standing up like we've seen in the trailer and the GIFs and everything. And I was like, I kind of wish it would have been him dropping down, stood up, title card, then it cut back to him walking and talking with Sam Lane. And they're kind of talking. Right. They're talking very casual, very friendly. Sam mentions about wanting to take, Jonathan fishing and hopefully then get Jordan to come too.
Yeah. I like how he takes the icicle or the iceberg in there. He just lowers it down and allows it to melt and spill all over the place. He doesn't just throw this gigantic iceberg inside there and, like there's property damage he's saving by doing it that way.
Yes, and it's allowing it to cool, kind of slowly without just like dropping it. And
yeah, it's probably more effectively cooling that way, I'm sure.
We're not scientists, okay, but we're just theorizing here, people.
I know a little bit about radiation, heat production, how things transfer energy from hot to cold, that type of stuff. But yeah, it's not the Big Bang Theory over here.
So they're at the next thing is like Clark comes back. He's at the house, and he comes in, and I really like his Clark in these scenes right here. We find out he missed Jordan's therapy, and he's like, he goes upstairs, and Jonathan tells him that I'm a starting quarterback. I'm a freshman. It's pretty exciting. Clark's over enthused. Since he has a little bit of a higher voice sound. He goes into Jordan's room. He's blaring loud music, playing Injustice 2.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool. Like, just if I think about it from like it's Earth Prime kind of point of view, like the fact that on Black Lightning's Earth, Superman was a comic book character, and so it makes sense there's merchandise and everything, because we've seen even on Arrow and Flash where like they've played with like the action figures that we can purchase of the characters. So
exactly. In Titans, Connor gets his T-shirt from a vendor on the side of the street.
So it's not too far off, and I love how Clark's like, yeah, you make a pretty good Superman. Superman's boring, Ted. I'm Raiden.
Yeah, right. And I knew he was going to be Raiden too. I didn't think he was playing Superman.
I just want to say I thought it was pretty sweet that he was Raiden. Like, not even another DC character, like a Mortal Kombat character.
Yeah, definitely.
We do get Clark mentioning being team manager of football. Thought that was kind of neat. Just a reference back to that, which means that this Clark didn't play football. He's not like the John Byrne all-star football player.
Yeah. Well, as we find out, and as we know, Superman Clark's always had enhanced strength and speed all his life, ever since he was a toddler. But it wasn't until he hit puberty and his other abilities started to manifest.
Which is in line with so many of the other versions that we've experienced, and that's what.
Even as they get a little bit older, like Man of Steel, his X-ray and his heat vision kick in grade school, but it's still a progressive thing, as he gets older. But the speed and the strength are always like the thing, and that's very worrisome on how strong he is. He would grow up not being able to play football, just under fear of hurting somebody.
And they keep alluding to, we saw Jordan throw the football and bust the rope. We see, you saw about his football skills. Ma calls Clark and they have a conversation, and she lays it on to him about being a father and what his kids need to see and the importance of that.
So yeah, one thing there, it's really cool how they believe that the kids could be manifesting powers, but as it is, like, he's had the Fortress run tests, and the children are unlikely to develop powers, it says. So, like, their kids have been able to lead a somewhat normal life. as like human children. They didn't grow up with abilities like he did. So that's an interesting character beat for the children, for the boys. And in this phone conversation that he's speaking with his mother, there's some Easter eggs on the to-do list on the board.
Yes, there is.
Dr. Donner's class sign up and call Siegel and Schuster.
Well, also, when Jordan was in there, there is reschedule Dr. Reeve.
Oh, was it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I missed that one.
It's on the, like, the board's different, but it's Jordan in the shot. But yeah, there's a lot of Easter eggs that they padded into this. The second, before I forget, what do you call it? Nuclear plant is the company place where Firestorm in the comics was created.
Oh, really? Was there a business name on the?
Yep, and I just don't remember what it was, but I remember reading that today. So I was like, oh, that's cool. But yeah, the boys are leaving for high school. Lois and Clark. There's a really cool edit of them talking about how they should tell the boys. And frankly, Janine and I are sitting there thinking like, yeah, you should have told your boys. Like, they're 14. You have to trust your children. You know, and it's not fair that you've been lying to them and keeping things from them about what you do, where you are, who you are, and the fact that, you know, Jordan brings it up later when he talks about his mental health. And they're like, we never thought your mental. Yeah, I would think that his mental health could be affected by being half Kryptonian, but you know, that makes too much sense for me. I don't know about you, James, but
well, I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe they considered it, you know, or maybe they thought of it but didn't consider it as a real possibility that it is a problem. But they're taking his mental health seriously, like you would your teenage child's mental health. That, you know, for the most part, they've been normal children, so that's what they're treating them as. You know what I mean? So if he needs medication, right, then
I mean, yeah,
you try and get him some help.
Yeah, but I mean, you're also dealing with something that's never been done.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, it's one of those. Oh, okay. But I like how like they're talking and then it cuts to them in the elevator and it opens up. And this was the scene that I missed it partially because it's in dialogue. The way they cut it is they're walking in. They find out that there's been budget cuts. Lois drops the line that Morgan Edge bought the Daily Planet, which I totally called out.
Yes, you did.
And it's interesting because, you know, they wave, they're talking about this other guy's getting fired, and then we see a guy come out and yells Kent and waves for Clark, and then like it cuts and she says, "Fired? You're fired." Like, we didn't see him get fired. That's what threw me off. It's because it was such a quick cut and she just says it in dialogue that Clark was fired. And I kind of feel like that would have been a cool scene to see. You know, also because Clark misses a call, or also Clark gets a call right after. It would have been interesting if for drama purposes, if like Clark goes in there, his phone's going off, and they tell him like, you know, they're kind of rude about not answering his phone because they're going to talk to him, and you know, he gets fired, then comes out and checks his phone, and then what happens. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Before they go to the Daily Planet, they have a little morning breakfast powwow with the boys, and right here, it's kind of the first. It's the first interaction you get to see with the boys, and throughout this whole show, you get a range of interactions with them. They're brothers, so they fight, but they're twins, and they care about each other and they have that bond. Like, these boys have really good chemistry together. And here in the beginning, in this first interaction, it kind of makes John kind of seem like a jerk to Jordan. But then as the show goes on and you see them interact in different ways, like they go back and forth. They bicker like brothers, and the chemistry is really good.
Yes, it is. And that was like
the whole episode is fantastic.
That was my one thing. I was like, man, they could very easily kind of cast like John as a douchebag, stereotypical, and Jordan as more of like the loner, like they give them roles, but they don't feel like caricature roles, like the stereotypical that we've seen.
They feel like actually Clark and Lois's children. Like, even though Jordan is your social anxiety one, he is still like he still stands up and talks, says what he means in different situations, whether to Sarah or to his parents. They're definitely well-rounded characters, even in just this pilot episode.
And I'm there are certain points I'm very interested to see where they go as they explore as the story goes on from this episode. So their seeds are kind of planted and everything. Clark gets the call when him and Lois are talking. I love that she puts money in the thing to get a like candy bar or whatever, and it's stuck, and he just tilts it down and it falls from the vending machine. And he gets a call from Doc Fry, which is a reference to the Donner films. And he says, what? And I love that we see him take off. We get a scene of him fly into Smallville, land behind, change, and go into...
And run into the house.
And the doctor's like, Clark, how did you... And then she just lets it go. And, Ma had a stroke. And I love his subtle acting in this, of just like standing there like he's twitching, like had his hands. And, this is new Superman territory. Like, we've always had Ma alive. Now we have both parents dead.
Yeah.
In a live action show that focuses on that. On the, back on the Adventures of Superman, they are both dead, but they didn't play the kind of role that they've come to play in everything else that the character has embraced over these years upon years.
Yeah, the way he walks into the room, looking down and sad and terrified, and not even looking over at the bed. It takes him a minute to work up being able to look over at the bed and see that Ma is dead in bed.
And then we go back and we get a shot of the same look of Smallville, but now we're seeing farms and houses for closure. It looks deserted, run down. We're at the funeral, and we get to see some really good cutting and editing of like Martha's funeral with Jonathan's funeral, and how Clark was, and then we cut, and it's on the farm, and Jonathan brings Jordan something to eat and reminds him to take his pill. And Clark hears Lana showing up. And it's kind of neat because Clark hears her coming, and Jonathan and Jordan take note and comment on Sarah, which is Lana's daughter. And
yeah, so we get a one of our, besides the foreclosure signs that we see, we get one of the first hints of Lois doing her investigating into what happens. Lois has her own plot, and it's all just moved through dialogue, with her plot being, investigative journalism, talking to a farmer who had to sell his farm last year.
Yep. He talked about that, and they were just kind of getting the sense of, what Smallville's like. Because Clark, here in a little bit makes a reference about, should I have come back more often? Should I have done this? And I do like the fact that we have, Lana show up, and Lois isn't any kind of like on guard or feels threatened or anything. I don't want to go down those type of like tropes.
Yeah, that's cheap, and this show from this pilot is much better than that. Hopefully that does not come into play later as a cheap storyline.
I mean, I could see like Lana being like coming towards Clark, but I want no such reciprocation.
Yeah, having re-emerging feelings from the past, just because, like we see from this scene and some others, her husband is kind of a jerk.
Yes, Kyle. And so kind of skipping ahead, his daughter later is talking to Jordan and mentions like the sadness that falls, and like it hit their family when she was about 12. And I'm wondering if that's just metaphorical or there's something going on. Because, trying to go back, like, wasn't the Amazo virus like started in Smallville and the New 52, and then in Rebirth we had them living in the farm in Hamilton County that was actually like aliens had done some things, and I don't know. I was just thinking, like, is it metaphorical, or would it be something more playing into the plot of something with the town? But yeah, Kyle, we know he drinks and it's very worn down, rough, and I don't want to say like he's kind of jerkish, but not too much, because
yeah, he's not a complete a-hole,
because
but
later there's a cool part, where Clark thanks Kyle and he just kind of like acknowledges it, kind of like you're welcome thing, and we get a line that Clark used to date Lana, and that's why Daddy got mad because you were on his Facebook.
Yeah. And then his comments here when they're talking at the table, and his comments about the farm and Martha. Or he wasn't negative towards Martha, but just the way he came out with the comment about Martha and the farm, and then his feelings on small towns, and just looking at Lois and Clark like they think they're better than people from Smallville. And Clark loves Smallville.
Yes, he does. That's the thing, is he loves it. He embraces it, because the kids even said, I think our dad loved it here.
Yeah.
And they're just talking about, because Morgan Edge, and they're saying, look what Morgan Edge is doing. And they're like, and I don't want to read into this, and I'm not going to go there, but there's underlying themes about current events or whatever. And he's saying Morgan Edge looks at Smallville for the future. Everyone else looks at Smallville for its past. And, he criticizes the Daily Planet, because Lois mentions that Morgan Edge is ruining the Daily Planet and journalism, period. Talking about all the people that left or bailed on Smallville.
Yeah. Lois talks about how Morgan Edge, his companies, when he buys places out, he pays people minimum wage. He doesn't give people living wages to be able to work and survive and stuff like that. And they show that Morgan Edge is coming into an area like this that was having a rough time buying up land cheap, doing their shady business deals. That's the way that's what Lois knows is happening. And, you just get a local guy like Kyle, who people around him have been having it hard. And somebody comes in and says that they want to help and starts to buy up some stuff. I mean, they can easily look like a good guy,
mm-hmm.
but you know, we know things are going to happen. We know that Morgan Edge is not a good guy.
Nope. And it's just, I think that Morgan Edge knows. I think Morgan Edge has figured it out at some point in time. That Clark Kent.
It almost makes me wonder that somewhere, that our stranger may have dealings with Morgan Edge. You know.
It also makes me think, just, well, if they haven't mentioned Lex Luthor yet, but kind of what the relationship of Clark and Lex is like, considering, it's post-crisis and Lex rewrote so much of his history.
Yeah, he's no longer a criminal, charged with crimes against humanity and stuff like that, like world crime, tried by all the nations of the world crimes.
And I do want to throw this out there. I am okay if they choose not to use John Cryer, Lex Luthor, like in this season. But for the next season, I want to see these two interact together. Like, I really want this story to play out how they envision it. But I would like to see John Cryer and Tyler really, like, they're both in crisis, but they're never really together. Or like, just them kind of thing. We get Lana mentioned, come by the bank tomorrow to talk about the farm. And then we cut to the kids in the barn. Their dad always told them not to be in the barn. They're looking for the router. And like, this made me laugh just because, like, for people who don't live in the country, like, if they're complaining about why is her router in the barn, that could be one place they could get signal, depending on the type of internet, where they've had to put this, like, a satellite or some sort of, like, special dish like we have, living in the, out here on farms and everything.
Yeah.
I often wonder how she got to it to fix it if needed to be. But,
yeah, it's a little bit farther out than if she needed to do something to it.
Like, my father-in-law has their, like, dish receiver on, like, in the back of their house, and it's up a little bit on the hill, and I don't know, good 50 to 100 plus feet of cords run from it into the house to run it to the router, which is in the house. So, I mean, things, aren't always as people perceive them. But Sarah is talking with Jordan, and Jonathan's kind of being cool, and she talks about a party, and she puts her number. So Jordan feels like he can take on the world after just getting some attention from the girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's like, all right, I'll go get this router. I got this. And he goes up, and then we find out it's Jordan that, hits the pipe. He falls, and then Jonathan just immediately jumps to over top of his brother. And that shows you something right there just about the brothers. Like, Jonathan.
Yeah, he went right in to protect his brother.
Having no sense that he has powers, could have power, anything, just straight for his brother. And, Clark is talking about when he was flying in, he heard right before he got to the farm, Martha says it's time to come home. And I thought that was an interesting little, tidbit of just information. And then Sarah comes running out, and she's yelling, the boys.
While Clark's running to the barn.
And I don't know if this is just Tyler running or if they did some sort of trick with the film or anything, because it looks like he's running fast, but like a little bit faster than a normal person would run, but not fast enough that you would think anything of it.
I mean, I don't know. Tyler looks like a pretty damn athletic dude, and he's not the biggest Superman we've had by any means, tallest or muscular. He might be able to freaking run, man.
He might. I mean, I'm just gonna say this: like, Tom fluctuated in his like muscle and like just leanness. Brandon with like lean and tone in Superman Returns. Chris was a lean, Superman. It's only really been Henry that's been like a hulking Superman. Like, you know, Dean was in shape, but he was never like muscle upon muscle.
No, he was muscular and he was cut.
So I'm just saying, like, it's only been Henry that's really like ripped, like,
Yeah.
jacked.
Gotta say it with emphasis.
You know, I mean, Tyler's a fit dude, and also, I mean, training. I feel like, you know, he was in the better shape when he first appeared on Supergirl and Lois. Supergirl. That'd be a cool show. But you know, it also depends on what he was able to do before they started filming. Maybe he couldn't train as long and hard as he had planned because of COVID, or any other commitment for roles that he had that required him to be not as buff. So, you know, those are all factors that a lot of people don't think about.
You can tell though with his dress shirts and stuff. Like when he was in the suit for the memorial, like he is a muscular dude under there though.
Yeah, I mean, he is. And also, I mean, you got to think about when they film certain parts, you know, depending on the schedule. You know, we see the doc. He talks about the boy's just having a minor concussion, and that's it. And everybody's like, just a minor concussion. We're lucky. And it's just kind of funny, you know, and the boys go off, and Jordan's the one that's like really like, something's wrong, like something weird. And Jonathan just plays off like, what's weird is she gave you her number and you already texted her, didn't you? And, you know, he's just playing along, and he calls his brother a little bit of a freak, and we see a Crow's banner hanging on the wall, and it looked green in the shot. You know, and then we have Clark and Lois talking, and they just automatically assume that John has powers, and Clark mentions he can't lose Jordan, and it would push him farther away. And this is what popped in my mind, though. Does Lois have a job?
It's Metropolis Meteors.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, but that's what's on the wall. I mean, I assume so.
Because that's something
she's still calling. She's still calling about stories and getting information and stuff. Although I'm sure she has her contacts. Being Lois Lane, she doesn't need a job at Daily Planet to get information.
Right.
Oh yeah, there is a little Crow's banner on the wall.
But yeah, they never said she was fired. They said Clark was fired, and that's why I said that whole scene just kind of felt to me very like quick and a little mucky. I mean, did they both get fired, or you know, because we'll see. I guess maybe as the episodes go on, but I thought they both got fired. But it does feel like he got fired and she didn't. So we'll have to wait and see, because that was kind of ranging in my mind the whole time I'm watching this. Like, wait a minute, because I watched it twice.
Well, you know, we think of shows that we've seen, and these journalists who spend all this time in the bullpen and running in and out of the office, and probably more or less, especially a journalist of her caliber, she probably doesn't spend that much time in the office.
Oh yeah,
it's all she writes and emails and calls in information and stuff like that.
So, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. You know, they have a really good conversation about every life has their problems, even the extraordinary ones. And then Sam Lane shows up. And I got thinking about this. In Clark's life, if you think about father, like, he has his father-in-law now. His dad is dead. Jor-El is dead. And now Sam Lane is like the father figure around, who is like the antithesis style of Clark, but at the same time has a lot of similarities in the responsibilities that he has. The idea of duty, honor, a higher calling, that pulls you from his family. And even Sam says things, you know, to Lois about, you know, you fell in love with Clark, but you married Superman, and I told you. I told you this. And Lois tells her dad that he's not going anywhere. Superman will be there when he's needed, but Clark's staying right there.
Yeah. Yeah. General Lane's attitude definitely makes it seem that he's more interested in what he can get from Superman. I mean, they may be working together and they're amicable, but I don't feel that that's far to last, especially if if Clark wants to spend more time trying to raise his sons, especially with what they're potentially going to be going through at their age. And, when the boys are talking to each other in the room, like it's interesting too, because Jordan is the inquisitive one, he wants to know what happened.
I think that, Clark's let his guard down just because Sam knows and it's his father-in-law. And like you said, I think Sam's just using him for what he can. And that's when they come back. And we'll get there. We'll get there because I have a couple things.
Yeah, I think it'll be a problem, like, if he doesn't want to do it. And then I think, Sam's going to have his own problems because of, what he may be involved in, get some credit for being the boots on the ground after Superman, or when Superman shows up and after Superman leaves, you know what I mean? Maybe he's getting credit and stuff as well.
Mm.
And accolades are not coming like they were before. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a new world to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Which I like. I'm good for it. So the next big thing that really happens. Oh wait, there was Kryptonian writing that Sam revealed to Clark. That's being left at the nuclear power plant attacks. And so the next big thing is when they do go to the bank. And first of all, why does Clark need money? We saw, pre-crisis, he, did the whole coal into a diamond. Right? Am I right here? Like, seriously?
Right.
And where is Batman to buy the bank? That's what I kept thinking. Like, where's Batman, period? Like, yo, Bruce, can I get some cash, bro? It's pocket,
Well,
it's pocket change for you, Bruce. But,
yeah. Well, if this takes place alongside the current stuff that's going on, then Bruce is missing.
Which I'm just assuming it does for the time being right now.
Right.
Yeah, Bruce is missing, and makes me kind of wonder if Clark knows maybe that Bruce is somewhere like doing something like on Apocalypse or Mongol or something, because no one seems to really care that Bruce is missing, especially Clark, which is weird, but that's another conversation.
Just as a quick tangent there, I had never considered, what if Bruce is brainwashed by like the League of Assassins or something, and he's been with the League of Assassins, Ra's al Ghul, or maybe Ra's is dead and him and Talia are running the League of Assassins. He's like brainwashed or something.
Maybe. And
he went in undercover and Clark knew that, but then he never came back or something.
He'll emerge with Damian, because that'd be pretty awesome. Like
that'd be a dope way to bring in Damian.
In season 2 of this, or something, like you have Clark actually rescue Bruce, and that's kind of what it pans out to be. And
interesting.
You find, and then we have Damian who comes in, who's complete, like flip flops everything on the boys. But inside, they're talking with Lana at the bank, and they find out that 5 years ago the bank started offering reverse mortgages to seniors, and that Martha took out a second mortgage. Clark didn't know about it, and she was using the money to help people. And Lana starts listing people that Martha was helping in Smallville who were facing losing their homes, losing their farms, surgeries. And, Clark didn't know, is one thing. How much is left on this loan they never really go into. Martha had money set aside for the boys for college. But we also learn in this scene is Lana doesn't know that Clark's Superman. And that's different than like most every comic book story or film, that we can think of. Like, the Chris films are a little bit different. Lana, really comes into play in the third movie. But usually, Lana's the first person that he tells. And
yeah, I mean, there's that. She either she doesn't know or she does know, and she's just Clark was one of her best friends, and she's just kept it to herself the whole time because she always says something. She does say something like he doesn't age, or then she's like the car crashed and it was a pretzel and we were fine, and just one of the many strange things that happened back then.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't think. I mean, maybe she's that naive, but who knows?
Well, I mean, maybe she is. I mean, like the thing is, like she's talking like that with Clark and Lois, who are married. So it's not like she would have to play it up for anyone else around.
Yeah.
Since it's just the three of them in that scene, it makes sense that she doesn't know.
Right. Yeah. It does make sense that she doesn't know, or like I said, maybe she just in the back of her mind she feels it, or maybe in the back of the mind she does. Just saying, it's just interesting for the character, you know what I mean, to not have been told and talking like she doesn't know, or
exactly. I do find so the next beat is the boys sniffing around the barn, and they find Clark's ship, and Jordan touches it, and it like comes to life, and it's like that liquidy, like Man of Steel type material.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing, like, it gives Jordan, like, a crystal. And he takes it in his hand. And then the next scene is Clark and Lois pulling up, talking. And she says, with two teenage boys who look angry, and they come running out. And I feel like this would have been the most interesting scene to write, is how you play this and how you do this to, like, do it correctly for the boys. Because I like how he's like, it was a lie, and Clark just immediately like, yes, it was a lie. We lied. And then he starts telling them the story, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, how much the world knows about Superman, because that he came here and all this. Because Clark, he's telling the story, and then Jonathan's like, "Are you saying you're Superman?" And then we have the whole part with Jordan, like, "No, we've seen Superman." And it's interesting when Clark takes off the glasses, how dramatic it is. And he walks over to the truck, which is like, looks like it's the same truck from Smallville, and lifts it up. And the kids are watching him. And if you look closely, the kids are crying. Like, there's tears running down their face.
Well, especially Jordan with the way he feels, all the stuff he's been through emotionally, and then the way that it's kind of revealed that they feel that maybe Jonathan is the one who has powers, that he saved them during when the pipes fell down. A lot going on.
Oh,
and they just feel like they've been lied to there all the time.
I mean, he's like, you lied to cover his story, to cover his secret. You lied to us. You made me believe that something was wrong with me, that you put me on pills. I'm half human and half whatever the hell Velkia he is. And, he's like really losing on him. And I love it. Like, I love how Jordan, and then I like how Clark goes to move and Jonathan's like, no, just leave us alone. Like, he steps in, and it was very like great done scene. And Clark's like, "Am I a bad father?" He says to himself, because Jordan says, "You might have been sent here to be a hero, but you weren't sent here to be a father." I thought, man, like, man, that's some strong stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, growing up, if you didn't know your father was Superman, he's gonna be gone a lot. Especially with the things that Superman can do if he's saving the day in another galaxy or something. I mean, like, so growing up and being an emotionally challenged teenager, I mean, it feels like a big betrayal.
Mm-hmm. And then we get where Superman meets the stranger. He shows up, and the stranger is talking to him and says, like, it's lead. That's why they're meeting where they're meeting, because it's made out of lead. And they're fighting, and he calls him out, starts saying stuff, calls him Kal-El, and says, "I know things about you." And so this is going on when we cut back to Smallville, and Jordan is getting dropped off at the party at the Schuster mines. The coal mines that Morgan Edge is going to reopen. And who dropped him off? That was my question when I watched it the second time. Because Jonathan's not there. Jonathan wasn't invited. Jordan was. And
I think he just took an Uber.
I guess. That makes sense.
Because I thought the same thing. I said, who dropped him off? No, Jonathan didn't go with him there, because when Jonathan shows up at the party, he's like, how many people I had to ask to find this place or whatever.
Yeah, he says all the townies I had to interrogate to find out where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out that Sarah took pills because she had a problem, and that's when she's revealing stuff about the sadness and all the bad stuff about Smallville. She talks about her dad, being a fireman and busting into a house where the parents are cooking meth and it catches on fire with their kids inside. And it's interesting because if you watch, Jordan's wearing a red sweater in this scene, and most of the time he's been wearing darker clothing. And now if you really watch this scene, okay, when Jordan and Sarah are sitting together, if you pay attention, the background is all green screen.
Is it?
The party and everything, it's green screen.
Oh, yeah, they can't have that many people gathered.
Exactly.
They had to have, yeah. Especially when they would have been filming this.
That's what I'm saying. It's all post-COVID filming, So, I was telling Jania, because there's little parts where she's
we're not post-COVID yet.
Well, I mean,
even up in Canada.
Well, I mean, post as far as the outbreak,
sorry.
Because shows were filming pre-COVID, and then COVID happened, and then they started filming after the COVID, incident. So this is afterwards. None of this was filmed before, some of our other shows. And it's interesting because there's certain times I've pointed out, Jania are talking about, oh man, I would have done this. And I'm like, well, think about your blocking, Jania, and your COVID regulation and stuff. Maybe in this scene, you would have had them embrace or something more, but you couldn't at the time. And she's like, well, yeah, you got, when you start thinking about production stuff, because even some of the shots, the way they position people, they're farther apart than what you think because they're using depth to make them look closer.
Yeah, using perspective to make people look like they're standing closer, but they're really farther apart, not standing directly across from each other.
Yep. And, but this is the part where I had to say, WTF, Sarah. WTF. Where, she's talking to Jordan. She's opening up her heart to this kid who feels the same way. And he leans in and kisses her, and she goes, what? I have a boyfriend. And I'm like, seriously? Seriously? I'm like, you could have said that earlier. All the interactions you've had have been very leading, and you couldn't drop the line that you had a boyfriend.
Yeah, they do have chemistry. Could say maybe not so leading, but they definitely do have chemistry. And yeah, the guy pushes him. That's my girlfriend. And his girlfriend, she said, I would have gotten around to it. We were talking, and then you kissed me.
I'm like, you were talking at the funeral at the barn when you invited me. All this time, like when I got here, when I said you're the only person that I know here, you could be like, oh, well, my boyfriend and his friends are over here. You could have introduced her or said something, which makes me think that she's ashamed of her boyfriend and all that kind of bullcrap baggage that they might get into. But her boyfriend pushes Jordan.
Yeah, absolutely.
He pushes Jordan down, and Jordan's trying to like calm, like, hey, I didn't know. And then boom, Jonathan just shows up and pushes him back. And right there, like, he's defending his brother. And you're cutting. So now the boys are getting to a fight, and then like they're getting like hit and beat up on and outnumbered. And of course, this is 2021 where no kid wants to help. They just want to stand around with their phone and record everything.
Right.
So you have all the kids just filming it. No one's trying to help, which makes me mad. And then you have the juxtaposition shots of Clark fighting the stranger through like Chinatown, in space. And this was a part where Stranger, like his suit is taking everything Clark's throwing at it. Heat vision, freeze breath, punches. And he's just talking to him about how I know who you are. Then he stabs Clark, like, looked like in the heart with a kryptonite. And Clark just starts falling to earth. And that's when Solomon was like, Dad, is Superman get stabbed? Is he dead? And he was freaking out.
Right. I mean, it's played pretty serious in this until it's not. Like, as he's falling, he does, like, luckily there was enough of that kryptonite sticking out. He was able to grab it and just pull it out of his chest. And then he was fine.
Yeah, because, we cut where he's falling, and we cut back to the boys, and we see Jonathan just on the ground, or Jonathan's on the ground, George's on the ground, and Jordan just is angry, and his eyes turn red, and just heat vision out of his eyes, and just blows the fire. And Lois sees something on TV about it. She signals for Clark. Clark hears it. That's what kind of snaps him out. Like, as he's fallen, he's thinking about all the stuff that he's kind of failing at. And he pulls it out. He lands, like, right before he hits the ground. And he takes off. And he shows up there. And that's the scene where he sees Jonathan. And he sees Kyle and thanks him. And then Jonathan's like, I'm okay. It's Jordan. And Clark looks over, and there's this long look of him just looking at Jordan, who just looks scared. And he's, and I'm like, dude, go hug your son. Run over there. Like,
right.
And I'm just like, man, come on. And
so this fight between the stranger is pretty good. For the standards that it has. I mean, the effect of Superman going through the wall at the very beginning of the fight, and then the stranger throwing him through a wall, and then the flying and the fighting out in space and the heat vision and the freeze breath. It's a pretty decent fight.
It looks good. One of the negative things I'll say is in this fight and some of the flying scenes, it looks like the suit that Tyler is wearing, like in some shots, look like it's like a little too big. The fabric looks really loose because there's certain ways you can see where like it kind of looks like it's pulling on his like hips and thighs where he'd have like the wires and stuff hooked up.
Yeah, it's as if like some of the fabric isn't like adhered almost to the muscles that they have sewn into it.
Yeah, it's just there's a couple of shots that look a little odd because because the wire works, being removed, and like sometimes the way the suit looks, like the way it lays around his neck and stuff, like it just like looks like his head's popping out of it. Like, so it's interesting.
Yeah, it's like the padded muscles. It's like the outside is the material is thin and it's loose. It doesn't look like a heavier material like the other suits that we're used to these days. And I mean, the suit and the CGI effects, with it being a television, and with how good this was, I have definitely given a pass on them.
oh yeah, I mean we're kind of nitpicking because like
Yeah, it's nitpicking.
everything looks so top quality that I don't want to say it's jarring, but like some of the effects like this look a little like, oh yeah, we're on the CW.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, oh, and we're back to CW. I mean, there's a great shot of just, of course, you know, Superman flying over the Earth, and that's like the standard Superman shot. But you know, we have the scene of like the family back in the house, and you know, we never get a scene of Clark telling Lois, "Oh, I got stabbed in the heart by kryptonite." By the way, and they're talking, you know, and Jordan is revealing how he felt. He was fuzzy, he couldn't remember, but he felt this strength over him after he fell, and like, you know, we see that Jonathan jumped on top of him, but then he grabbed him and he rolled over to protect his brother, and it was Jordan that actually saved them. And you know, Jonathan's like holding ice pack on and everything, and it's a really good scene of just, you know, the brothers and the family, and you can tell like Jordan's angry still and dealing with it, and Clark tries to have an honest conversation about, like, you know, his dad found him and immediately became a father, and he didn't know what he was doing, and that, you know, Clark's trying to do the best that he knows how to do to be a dad. We learned that Lana's bank is owned by Morgan Edge. It was Morgan Edge who was offering the reverse mortgages. We have a great scene of Jordan kind of apologizing to Sarah for kissing her, and you know, John asks about like, what do they think the fire was, and you know, oh, it was a gas pocket or something, which in a coal mine kind of makes sense, I guess, but it kind of remind me more of Smallville vibe right here. And you know, Jordan he tries to apologize to Jonathan about, you know, having powers, and you know, Jonathan's like, powers are overrated, man, it's all good. He's like, and I love the lines like, just proves what I was thinking all along, my skills on the field are legit.
Yeah.
And I love it, you know. But then the next scene is when they tell the kids that, hey, what do you think about staying in Smallville? Because, you know, Clark and Lois talked about Mom wanted them home. Maybe it's the best for the boy, especially if Jordan has powers. And they were talking over at family dinner, you know. And this is where I think the problem's going to come up for Jonathan, is because now they're taking football away from him, his girlfriend away from him.
Yeah.
And this is where I think he's going to start to have issues and kind of rebel and be a little bit more fighting back, because now the what he was comfortable with and he knew is disappearing. And you know, Clark says, well, I'm gonna show you guys around and take you outside and teach you some stuff. They're like Superman things. It's like, no, how to hook a plow to a tractor. These fields aren't gonna plow themselves.
Yeah. And they're like, whoa, wait, we just found out our dad is Superman. We have like questions, like thousands of questions.
And I like that, and that about wraps up the episode, because we're going to shift gears here in a second. But I'm saying this: they both have powers.
Yeah, I feel that absolutely.
I think Jonathan's is emerging slow and steady, like stamina, height and skills, some speed, you know, senses, and Jordan's came at times of emotional influx.
Because earlier on, you could figure when they're talking about Sarah when she shows up, Jonathan says she's 50 yards away and approaching. Like, that's not something anybody would say, even a football jock. You know what I mean? Like 50 yards on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it makes a little sense in that context, but
I think there's little hints.
That seems a little. Yeah, exactly. I think so too.
You know, they're manifesting different for both kids, and I think that I think, you know, they both have powers. Jonathan's are going to come a little bit later because Jordan's came out of like emotion and rage, and that plays into the character that he is. Now, hold that thought. We're going to jump real quick. So we find out the stranger is parked into Iceland, and he goes into his ship, and the stranger is addressed as Captain Luther. And we know the stranger is African American. Yes.
And how do you pronounce his name? Wooly?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Not going to try it. Not till I hear it. I'm a little bummed, real quick, that we never bet Pete Ross in the show yet. I hope he comes along the line in Smallville. So with that being said, we found out that so everything of this whole episode is so disconnected from the Arrowverse. But we found out the stranger is actually a result of Crisis. So like we were saying, like he's like a doppelganger from Crisis, from a different Earth. So he's going to be kind of Lex, I guess, on the show at the moment, or however they play it out. So it is kind of a Clark versus Lex kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what I'm kind of wondering and thinking too is that there'll be some sort of discussion or anything where Jordan is kind of a product of Crisis. You know, if there'll be something like, you know, you weren't supposed to be here, but because of Crisis, you are here. Your brother was the one that was born, or something. And I wonder if the stranger is going to come into town or come up and kind of befriend Jordan and kind of try to pull him away and align himself.
Right.
And cause a rift there in, you know, with the family, manipulating the sons of Kal-El and everything. So we'll see. I mean, did you watch the little special after the episode?
I did. I got pulled away from it a little bit, though. The main part I wanted to see was like the end, the kind of
preview for the season.
What to expect. Yeah, what to expect for the rest of the season.
It was cool. Like, yeah, the special was nothing big. You know, the whole 2-hour thing was a little too much because they padded it out with a lot of commercials. You know, they let it play for like 20 minutes straight before the first commercial break. And then after that, it was just like commercial.
Oh, yeah.
Commercial.
Out of 90 minutes, there was 27 minutes worth of commercials.
Yeah.
With the episode being an hour and 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
So, and then the legacy of hope afterwards was the actors talking about their characters, talking about Superman, the showrunner. There was Jim Lee on there. There was Jeff Johns on there.
And Greg Berlanti.
Greg Berlanti. There was Mark Guggenheim on there. And there was a lot of just talk about Superman, who he is, what he is, a little bit about the show, not even a full-on making of. It was just kind of discussing Superman and the idea of this Superman and what's going on. And then, yeah, the promo for some of the rest of the season, which looks like some cool action set pieces are coming up.
Yeah, it does. I like the coming up, and I hope they hold to this level of quality as far as just the experience, the look, the feel. The humanized story was very good. And then we'll get a little bit more into the Superman action, probably here soon, because, it's always interesting. It's like the director for episode 2 is the same director of episode 1, and a lot of times you'll see that in these series. Like David Nutter directed the first 2 episodes of Smallville, and I'm kind of wondering if the second episode will feel like it just kind of picks up where the last one left off, because little images from this episode are interesting, because the trailer that we watched for what do you call it for the series was scenes taken from both the first episode and the second episode. So not all the episodes
Makes sense.
So I kind of almost would wish they would have just released the 2 episodes together as one, but whatever. It's all good. It's all good. I'm pumped.
Yeah.
What would you rate this episode?
I mean, out of 10, if we go out of 10, I mean, everything involved. Yeah, just I'd have to. I'm gonna give it like, as one of the best pilots I've ever seen. It ranks up there. Let me put it that way. I mean, if Smallville's pilot's a 9.5, this is a 9.25.
I would say Smallville pilot's like you said. I always give Smallville pilot a 9. I would give this.
I think maybe it's more nostalgia. They're both a solid 9, easy.
I think this is gonna be a 9.5. It's part of nostalgia, yes, but I think the drama and even more of the humanization of Clark. That's always like one of his underlining stories, is he wants to be more human than what he is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a 9.5 for me. I mean, the introduction at the beginning, the ship, the parents, Smallville. I mean, Jonathan Kent having a heart attack in Smallville, a little different, kind of, small change. Going to Metropolis, the Fleischer suit, I freaked out when I saw it. The somewhat similar image to Action Comics #1, where Superman's got a hold of the green car. A callback. And then the Lois falling in love, marriage, kids, right into the awesome Superman action at the nuclear power plant, the character interactions, the chemistry as it goes on, the family dynamic they have. Yeah. And the story, the stranger they brought in, the stinger we left on, Captain Luther, like, is a fantastic pilot. I really, really enjoyed it. It actually made me buy the season. I bought the entire season on Prime.
And I did it on iTunes.
So, yeah, I mean, it was a deal to buy the whole season the way it was, since we're going to have 15 episodes.
And it was nice to watch it straight today and not have all the commercial breaks. Last thing I want to say is I ran a poll on our Twitter talking about Lois and Clark as couples. And I'm going to start with, I did 4 polls, okay? And these are the results as of right before we were recording. Poll number 4 is George and Noel, George and Phyllis, Kirk and Noel. We have 7 votes. 57% thought George and Noel was better. The next was 29 for George and Phyllis. And then 14 said Kirk and Noel. That one I thought was a long shot, The next poll was a no-brainer, but I thought it was funny. It is poll number 3 is Chris and Margot versus Brandon and Kate. 12 votes, 92% for Chris and Margot, 8% for Brandon and Kate. And what do I say about that? Who is voting for Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane? That's it befuddles me. This was the one I put up that was I thought would have the most competition. 13 votes. Tom and Erica versus Dean and Terry. 69% to Tom and Erica, 31% to Dean and Terry. The next one and the last one is Amy and Henry versus Tyler and Elizabeth. With 13 votes, Amy and Henry is 31%, and Tyler and Elizabeth is 69%. And I totally agree. Like, I think, Tyler and Elizabeth have great chemistry. And I look forward to seeing their story more. And this has been a good episode, a good chapter of Superman. And I look forward to what the show brings. And having a new Superman series is exciting. Weekly. I mean, Tuesday night is going to be the best night of television ever. With Superman and
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look in the sky.
I just want to let everyone know out there that thank you for listening. This was the Krypton Report, brought to you by Tyler and James with episode number 215.